Alright guys, this card is quite cool. This is a fake version of it, obviously, just for my testing purposes. But this is a Vowel Chain. Now, a lot of you have already seen this card very frequently on Dueling Network or Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro, whatever you use. And that's because he's amazing. He's requires 2 level 4 monsters, rank 4. And I can detach a monster from this, or excuse me, attach a material from this to either send a card from my deck to the graveyard or stack a card on top of my deck. So why is that good? Well, not only do you set up your graveyard, but you can control your top decks. Now, what deck does that sound like it affects the best? Setting up the graveyard, controlling your top deck. Now, a lot of decks, that sounds great in, but I feel like it affects this deck a little bit better than the other ones. With this card, Infernity may be relevant again. I don't think on the Tier 1 scale, but maybe on the Tier 2. So whenever Lavaval Chain comes out, I think you'll be seeing more Infernities pop up, just even at your regionals or locals. For those of you who don't know what Infernities are, they are a deck from the past that pretty much they spit out synchros. They go handless. So essentially you set a bunch of back row, get your monster effects off when you're handless, and you go from there. So it's pretty much a... It's hard to say because it's a hugely offensive deck that has great defense, but when you win like in the most epic fashion. But when you lose, it's kind of crappy. You just don't get the cards you need, and consistency kind of hurts you. And that's where Lavaval Chain really comes in. It adds consistency to an inconsistent, powerful deck. So allowing you to control what card you draw next. This is important, and I'll talk about that in a second, and setting up your graveyard. So this card is Infernity Archfiend. When I have no cards in my hand and he's special summoned, he can add any Infernity card from my deck to my hand. Now, there's powerful Infernity monsters, spells, and traps. So you definitely, this card just unlocks the whole deck to you. Huge plays are made around him, and he's definitely the cornerstone of the deck. Now, whenever he's drawn, so if I top deck this with no cards in my hand, I can actually special summon him, so he can actually proc his own effect. So being able to control that with the Lavaval Chain is huge. It's absolutely huge, and it really takes the deck to another level. Now, 3 Necromancers. As important as Infernity is, Archfiend is, Necromancer is just as important. When he's normal summoned, he's set to defensive position, and then I can special summon any, as long as I'm handless, I can special summon any Infernity monster from my graveyard, except Mirage, but we'll talk about her later. So that means even if I get an Infernity Doom Dragon, which is a level 8 Synchro Summon, as long as it was special summoned properly and then destroyed, I can special summon it with a Necromancer. It's quite good. So that's Infernity Archfiend, and then you get the Archfiend Search, and you go from there. And the next card is Infernity Avenger. Now, Avenger is the only tuner I'm running in the deck. I'm only running 1. A lot of builds will run 2. I'm testing 1 right now. He's a level 1, and he allows us to do a lot of really good things. Essentially, when you get these 3 cards in the graveyard, your graveyard is set up to go. There's a couple cards that will special summon 2 Infernity cards from your graveyard, so you'll get, any combination as long as Necromancer's in it, and then use Necromancer to summon the 3rd. So you'll get your search off your Archfiend, and then you'll go into a level 8. So that's pretty much the main bread and butter thing. You want these 3 cards in the graveyard. That's your setup. Now, this card is kind of like the topping on the cake. It's not a huge part of what you're trying to do, but it adds flavor. It adds a little something extra. Now, I see people run 2 and sometimes even 3 of this card, and I don't think it's necessary at all, especially the people who run 3. This card, I hate drawing it, but I love making plays off of it when it's in the graveyard. It allows you just to get an extra Archfiend Search, which is huge because you can get Infernity Barrier, which is a card we'll talk about in a minute, and just set up your field to where it's nigh impossible for your opponent to come back. So we're running 1 Mirage. When I'm handless, you contribute yourself to special summon 2 Infernity monsters from the graveyard. So obviously it sets up the play that I just referenced. So this is where the deck kind of takes its own turn. Now we're running Summoner Monk because we really want to get Lavaval Chain out in the first couple turns, and Summoner Monk helps us achieve that. Now, a lot of people may look at this card and kind of squint and go, Summoner Monk, it's good, but you can neg yourself if they Valor it or hit it with a warning, which is very, very, very true. but I'm seeing less and less Veilers in the main deck with macro being so prevalent, and I'm actually seeing less people, myself included, playing Warning. So he's amazing in the fact that if I'm play my hand properly, and I'm handless when I pitch for Summoner Monk, and I get an Archfiend out, obviously I get the search off of Archfiend, then I can overlay, stack for Chain, remove the Archfiend, and either pitch another card or stack an Archfiend on top. So that's one play with the Monk. You can also get a Gruffer. Gruffer, that obviously will drop another card out of your hand and drop a card out the deck. Or a Armageddon Knight. So any of those three cards are going to be your main targets. Armageddon Knight obviously will drop a dark card out of your deck. And then you overlay into the Lavaval Chain and either drop another one or stack the Archfiend. So that's a huge play for the deck. I really think this card is good, especially game 1. So definitely running 2 in the Lavaval Chain build. Then I'm running 1 Stygian Street Patrol. When it's in the graveyard, I remove it to special summon a Fiend from my hand so it can actually proc Archfiend's effect or get me a Necromancer on the field if I've already used my normal summon. So fantastic. 3 MST. Now I think 3 MST is absolutely necessary. The deck requires its plays to go off, obviously like any deck, but you really need to be able to snipe out threats, and with heavy being legal, people are setting, you know, more of 2 to 1 back row, so if you can snipe out that one threat and go off from there, it's really good, and obviously it's chainable, so it's just a great card. I see people running 1 and 2 in Infernity, and I just don't get it, but I think 3 is absolutely necessary. 1 Infernity Launcher. Now, Launcher is the card in the deck that is hit to 1. It's because it was searchable off of Archfiend, and it allows you to special summon 2 Infernities from your graveyard. So, obviously that made for huge loops. It was really, really, really broken. So whenever this card is activated, it's a continuous. It doesn't special summon, so it can't be hit by Warning. So it's got rulings a lot like, I think it's called Fusion Gate. Yeah, Fusion Gate for heroes. Or any fusion deck, really, but mainly in heroes. You can't summon Warning a monster summoned off a launcher, or a monster summoned off a launcher. And it also has, the primary effect of it is actually to drop a monster out of your hand, so when you activate it, it's continuous, and then you later activate it to special summon. It dodges Warning. It's just, you know, full Yu-Gi-Oh! Rulings, but it's actually a good thing for Infernity players. I'm running 1-0 Max, and this is a card that I don't see in a lot of builds, and I can understand why, but I am running Summoner Monk, so if it's dead or I don't want to use it, I can just pitch it for Monk. But 0 Max allows me to special summon an Infernity monster out of the grave. I won't even go into really what it does, but don't get your Archfiend because it'll miss its timing. Well, you just get a Necromancer and use it to special summon an Archfiend to extend plays. You can't attack that turn anyway, so it's really just to help set up, and a little bit of Archfiend abuse via Necromancer. I'm running 1 for 1. I know I'm running only 1 Mirage and 1 Avenger, so I'm pretty much banking on this to be able to dump a monster out of my hand and get one of the ones I'll eventually need onto the field. It's a good card, and again, if it's dead, it can be Monk food if need be. 1 Rhoda for my 2 warriors. Foolish, Mind Control. I run a very low monster count, so I want to be able to use your monsters to achieve my goals. 1 Dark Hole. 1 Book of Moon, 1 Monster Reborn, no Heavy Storm. Now, no Heavy Storm because unless I get it in the on my first turn, if you go first, it's probably going to be dead because I'm extremely back row heavy. It's just a personal choice. Like in my side deck that I'm going to be running Dust Tornadoes. I want to be able to snipe cards out. I don't want to have a blind destruction of my back row. It's not advantageous really for Infernity, and I know clearing the field so you can get your playoff is great, but more often than not, Heavy Storm late game is going to be absolutely dead to me. 3 Barrier. I may cut this to 2, but Infernity Barrier is one of, if not the best, overall defensive cards. If I have a face-up Infernity, it's a spell speed 3 that knocks out monster effects, spells, and trap cards. So it's just a beast of a card. It's searchable off of Archfiend, so you get it, you protect your field, set it up, say go, and watch your opponent squirm while they try to get around, you know, 2 barriers and a Void Ogre Dragoon. It's actually a dragon. It's actually quite cool. So I'm running 3. I may cut it to 2 and go to a 2-to-2 ratio with Infernity Break. I can remove any Infernity monster from my graveyard to destroy 1 card on the field. So as long as I'm handless, obviously. Same with Barrier, have to be handless. that includes removing used barriers and used launchers, so it's actually really good. And I'm probably going to go to a 2-to-2 ratio eventually, but right now I'm testing 3-to-1. 2 calls. Obviously abusing Archfiend's good. 2 compulses, 2 mirror forces. This may change, but right now I'm testing the 2 mirror forces and it's working actually quite well. 2 bottomless, only 1 warning. Again, testing, just testing purposes, I'm liking the 1 warning over the 2. 1 Starlight and 1 Solemn. So as per usual, we'll go backwards through our deck. And a lot of these trap choices are preference, so I mean, if you want to run the 2nd warning, by all means do it. If you don't want to run 2 mirror forces, don't do it. This is just where I'm at with testing and what I've liked so far. Zero Max, again, is a card that's preference. You can probably cut it if you want to, but I'm enjoying it at 1. And then my monster lineup's kind of messed up, but I get the gist. You just saw it. Let's go over the extra deck, and then we will be done for the night. So 1 Mistworm, we can make it. Trishula's not around, and sometimes it's just the right play. 1 Infernity Doom Dragon. You get this card set up really easily with the deck, and then protect it with barrier, and that's where you win when you get this card out, especially when it's backed up by this one. 3k attack and 3k defense. If I'm handless, it's a Shien. That's all you really need to know. It's amazing. If you get both of these out with like 2 barriers, you win. It's too much negation for your opponent to really get by, especially if it's like mid-game and they don't have a lot of options to get rid of monsters. You're popping 1 card per turn, you're negating 1 card per turn, and you're backing it up with spell speed 3 negation. It's ridiculous. 100 Eyes. You can copy Mirage in the graveyard, and you can reuse a Mirage. You can pretty much tribute him and get an extra Archfiend Search. That's really all he's there for. Scrap Dragon, Stardust Dragon, Catastor, Stygian Sergeants, and Armory Arm. This is a synchro heavy deck, so we do run quite a bit of synchros. Sergeant has a level 5, and if you attack, he's got 2200 attack. If you attack and destroy a monster, he gains 800 attack, and he can attack again. So paired with Armory Arm, and I've gotten this off a few times, it goes up to a 3200 for the first attack, and then 4000 for the second. And obviously, Armory Arm does the burn damage if you're destroying monsters. So it can actually end the game from almost any point. Because if you attack a big monster on the first destruction, then swing for 4k, it's pretty game breaking. I'm running 2 chains, 1 Photon Pap, 1 Maestroke, 1 Leviathan, and 1 Leviair. A few cards that can be switched around in here. I mean, obviously you don't need to play the Pap. You can play like a Utopia or a Shockmaster here. I really do swear by Maestroke. I like the card a lot. Obviously the 2 chains are important. And then the Synchro lineup is pretty standard, so there's not a lot of moving around you're going to do in there. But obviously you can add an Acid Golem. Some people will run 1 Tour Guide, so you can, that's like an instant Acid Golem or Zen Mains if you really want to do it. So that's the deck. If you have any questions, feel free to post comments. If you think I'm an idiot for running it the way I am always open for constructive criticism, so by all means have a Merry Christmas, guys, and hopefully more videos will be here to come.